Welcome into Words with Wallace. I'm your host, Nick Wallace, coming at you Tuesday, November 28th. And if you guys are watching on YouTube or just read the title of the episode, you guys can see we are joined by a very special guest. We have our resident Minnesota Timberwolves expert, my guy, Garrett Olson. Garrett, how you doing, man?
Hey man, I'm doing all right. Doing good actually. That was a big win over OKC. Kind of put the conversation to rest for the time being, and we're still atop the West, so vibes are high right now.
Garrett's my guy. We go way back from our time working with the Wolves. Shit, that was like 5 years ago now, or
Yeah,
getting
bro.
old.
I know, man. I still remember when you did like the whole Taco John's challenge and all that at lunch. Yeah, you were the intern. We played some 2-on-2, won a good little bet in the office. We had some good times back in those days, man.
We did, man. That we did. But it's been awesome. And Garrett hit me up last year when I started the pod, and he was trying to come on and talk Wolves. And so the Wolves are having a moment, man. And just like Garrett had mentioned, we'll just kind of set the scene a little bit. Wolves are now 13-4, still the number one seed in the West. And we had this strategically planned out. They just came off of a massive in-season tournament win over the Thunder, which was absolutely huge. The Thunder were actually number 2 in the West, and I think still should be even after the loss to the Wolves tonight. That was an awesome game, man. It was super close down the stretch. Early on, buckets were hard to come by. The Wolves started a little slow. Definitely felt like you guys were missing Jaden McDaniels a little bit out there on the defensive end
100%.
when SJ was getting going early. And actually comes out the gates blazing to start the second half, scores 11 straight points for the Wolves to start the third quarter, gets hurt, and ultimately the Wolves still find a way to rally. Just on that Ant injury note real quick, we don't have a huge update on that. Looked like he came down hard on his hip after going up for a dunk attempt. So obviously if we get any injury updates, we'll hit you guys with that, but probably wouldn't expect anything there. But still a huge win for the Wolves, man. So how are you feeling, and what were your big reactions after a win like that?
Yeah, man. It was. I mean, I'm feeling great. You know, we're still atop the West. As a lifelong Wolves fan, it's is pretty like uncharted territories. Typically we're sitting at the bottom, so it's like starting 13-4. I believe it's the best start in franchise history. Vibes are high right now. Just I think for myself, obviously, not being in Minnesota, but I'm sure if I was in Minnesota, it'd be even crazier. I know a lot of people that are still going to games. Pretty much every single night whenever we're in town. It seems like the stadium is selling out left and right. Tickets in the upper level are sitting around like $50 minimum now, which in the past when we were with the team, we couldn't even hand those things out for free. So it's like it's pretty crazy. I think looking at that game alone, yeah, a lot of foul calls, early on. Ant goes down. Everyone's kind of like really worried about that, but then out of nowhere, our savior Troy Brown Jr. comes in and gives us a solid 17, man. So it's just like I don't know. We just find these unsung heroes, when we need them, and we're piecing things together.
Yeah, man. Well, I think that's all great points. I almost texted you in the middle of that too. I'm like, this is the Troy Brown Jr. game? I'm like, what the hell
Yeah,
is this? I mean,
it
I know
was.
he literally, I think his only miss of the entire game was like that one free throw at the end of the game, which is hilarious. He was even at the line in that spot, but still a huge moment for him nonetheless. And honestly, somebody I forgot to mention, because I know the Wolves, obviously with the lack of picks, they didn't have any big splash plays this offseason. He's probably the
Oh,
closest thing to it, but that kind of leads me into my first question. Obviously, we talked about how the vibes are high and everything like that, but like, this team's rolling, right? Like, obviously, it was a tough year last year with Cat being down for a huge chunk of that. Didn't get to see a lot of minutes with Cat and Gobert out there together to really build that cohesion, build that fit. So my first kind of question to you, obviously the vibes are high, but like, what is the biggest change that you've seen from last season? Obviously, it's still early, but like, what do you think is the main change that has this team rolling early on?
I think right now the biggest change that I've noticed is our defensive cohesion. I mean, we're one of the best defensive teams in the league. I think we've held opponents to under 100 points. I think at this point 7 times. And last year we only did it 4 throughout the whole course of the season. So I mean, if you just look at that alone, that's going to set the tone. And then the offense, we've got enough guys that can get buckets, on their own in the flow of the game. Where I think that as long as we can continue to play defense at a high level, even without Jaden McDaniels, once he comes back, I really think we're going to be one of the scarier teams to match up with in the playoffs.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we haven't even talked about this yet, but obviously that game, Celtics versus Wolves, a couple weeks back was awesome.
Yeah.
Probably one of the best games of the year, even though my C's took the L on that. But
Yeah.
McDaniel's playing in that one. You have, Ant and Tatum getting into it in the last couple minutes of the game.
Yeah.
Like, it was just an electric game, and I didn't even realize that those two teams would be atop the NBA's power rankings as we sit here and record today, which is crazy to think about. But
It
yeah, man, the
is.
defense is no joke. I mean, you're really starting to see the vision of, obviously the Wolves were, call it what it is. They were clowned for trading for Gobert. Obviously, you're never going to be able to recoup the insane amount of assets, but it's obviously not too late to salvage what he brings to a defense. He was on full display tonight. And even without McDaniels, the last 5 games, it's like you got guys like Nickeil Alexander-Walker taking the challenge of
Yeah.
guarding SGA down the stretch. I know he kind of was a pretty good perimeter
He's
defender even when
he's
you lost McDaniels
yeah.
last year, right?
He was, yeah. I mean, he's a great guy you can plug in. I mean, obviously tonight he's guarding his cousin who was first team All NBA last season. I mean, he still put up, I believe, like 30 points tonight. I don't even think he hit a single 3-point shot. Just consistently attacking the rim. So I mean, for what it's worth, I think Nikhil did a really good job tonight. But also just the help defense from Rudy Gobert. I think if you look at it, I believe from a number standpoint, Rudy might be having the best season of his career from a defensive perspective. So I think him coming into the season a little bit healthier than he did last season has really helped us out. And then, with that, other guys are kind of just falling into suit and buying into the whole defensive presence that the team has in general. And it's working so far.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And I think that I kind of want to jump over to just kind of that fit between Cat and Gobert in a conversation
Hmm.
about both those guys, kind of starting with Gobert. Like, I agree with you from what I've seen from Gobert. I do think he's made a huge leap. Like, obviously, you saw his numbers take a bit of a dip as he was making an adjustment playing with a new team last season, but they seem to have rebounded a little bit, at least statistically. And tonight was a great example of that, right? Like, it seems like from what I've seen, and you obviously are the expert here, he's done a much better job of punishing those teams that are a bit smaller. Like the Wolves have a massive advantage, even on the offensive end. I'm not really comfortable with him doing post moves anytime soon. Like I don't think
Trust
many
me,
people
neither am
are.
I. Neither am I.
but if he can just
Under the ceiling.
exactly, but can we get some putbacks? Like, can we get some drop steps? Like, can we get
Right.
something little? Like, but tonight, obviously, I think we both have a soft spot for Chet. I had an experience playing against him in
Hmm.
Minnesota. He's a Minnesota kid, so this was his homecoming. And like, I know he had a
100%.
big three late in the game, but like, he was rough shooting the ball. I think he was like five
Yeah.
of 19 shooting or like 6 of 20 shooting, which was
Yeah.
even he finished with a decent stat line. But like, he looked completely physically outmatched as he should when he's playing up against guys like Cat and Gobert. And like, I just feel like
Hmm.
Rudy Gobert in past years didn't take advantage of those mismatches as much on both ends of the court, especially defensively. Is that something that you've seen as well?
It is 100%. Yeah, I mean, he basically turned Chet Holmgren into his son tonight. Like with that first quarter drop step dunk that he had on him, and then just consistently contesting his jumpers like in and around the rim. Even some of those push shots that Chet tried to hit, like Rudy's hand was right there, which caused him to be short or just off. So yeah, I mean, Rudy's taken advantage of everything that he can this year, and honestly, like I think he ended up with like 15 or 17 points tonight, which is if you can get that out of Rudy Gobert along with his 15 plus rebounds on any given night, like that should set you up for a pretty good opportunity to catch a W and move on to the next game.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And I think that, what's pretty interesting is like, and why people were so critical of the Gobert trade, in addition to just the assets that they gave up, was, questioning the
Hmm.
fit alongside Gobert and Towns. And, a lot of people just kind of
Yeah.
wrote off the Wolves pretty early last season, but what isn't really talked about much is the fact that I think we're still only 45 games roughly into the pairing of having
Yep.
those two play together. And so, what have you seen? Have you seen a difference in those two playing alongside each other compared from last season? Do you think that
Yeah.
this is just a relationship that's going to build with time?
I mean, I pretty much just chalk all of last season up as a wash. I don't even really count it, considering Cat played what, like 19 games to start, sat out, then another. No, he played like 10 games, sat out 52, and then played the final like 17, including playoffs. So they never really had an opportunity to get it, like to get a lot of work in together. And also last season, Rudy was in FIBA, Cat was sick, so he missed the entire training camp. So we were basically spitballing the entire time. Coming into this year, they obviously had the off season. I know they both did the whole FIBA thing, but they had training camp together. And what I've been able to see, I think, out of Cat this year is one, he's actually deferring a lot more. He's not taking the amount of jumpers, in my opinion, or shots that he needs to. I think if he can get that back up to 15 shots a game, I think this team becomes even more deadly. But the thing with Cat that he catches a lot of hate on is he consistently typically makes the right play. Like I remember back in some of those in that Memphis series of a couple seasons ago, Cat had like couple games where he only had a few points, but it's because he was just getting doubled right away. So he was just always finding the open guy. And I think this year too, he's done a really good job of actually feeding Rudy. Cat's pretty good at taking his guy off the dribble, and then when the five comes to step in and help, Cat's actually got that lob kind of in his bag to Rudy. and also just being able to find others. So I think it was an adjustment at first, but I actually have been really, really liking what I've been seeing with those two on the floor together from not only an offensive perspective, but also a defensive.
Yeah, absolutely, man. You're really starting to see that vision of the front office when they made that initial move. And what's nice is like you're able to break up those minutes because it's someone I didn't even have on the docket here, but Naz Reid, right? Like everyone loves him in mini, right? And having the ability to like, hey, if the matchup isn't right, you're able to bring in that extra. You still have two bigs on the court, and you can have that lineup
Hmm.
of Reed and Cat out there at the same time, and you have still immaculate floor spacing, which allows Cat to then drive to the hoop a little bit more too. Because I totally agree with you, man.
Yeah.
Cat, I'll let you go on Naz Reid because I can tell you're pounding your chest.
I was
That's your
just
guy
gonna
right
say,
there.
I was just gonna say one. Yeah, dude, we love Nas in Minnesota, man. Yeah, that's our guy. Like when he was a free agent, we all knew like we signed that guy, and then when we got him for the deal that we did, it was just like a home run. It's funny because this season we've actually had a few games where we've rolled out the lineup of Rudy, Cat, and Nas because Nas has shown flashes where he can like guard wings now. Like coming into the league, this dude was oversized, undrafted, and then he's just improved every year. And now he's actually pretty quick on his feet. Like he can guard threes, and it's been really fun to watch this dude like evolve as a basketball player. And then just he's got the shot now, dude. He's kind of got he was the only member of Jelly Fam, if you remember them, to make it to the NBA. Like he's kind of got a crazy bag, so it's just so fun to watch that dude ball out and watch the state of Minnesota just really embrace him.
Yeah, hell yeah, man. He's a great story. I think him, possibly has the highest approval rating on the team besides the one guy that we've kind of buried the lead on talking about, and that's, of course, Anthony Edwards here. So,
Of course.
obviously, we'll come back to the ceiling of the team and kind of the ancillary pieces around Anthony Edwards, but this is his team, man. Like, I just want to have a conversation about him. Again, obviously, wishing him the best. He's made a steal, bro. He's I can't see any sort of thing keeping Ant off the court long, but we're obviously wishing him the best. It was a scary fall after that big dunk, but he was on the court
Hmm.
supporting his team as you would expect him to do. Needless to say, though, his ceiling is through the roof, right? I think, again, he
It
might have
is.
the highest approval rating of any star player in the league. And just wanted to get, kind of your opinion on, how high is the ceiling of this guy, right? He's improved year over year, obviously the former number one overall pick. How high is his ceiling, and what do you think he needs to improve in his game to reach that full potential that we all think he can?
Yeah, dude. If I'm being completely honest, like unbiased opinion, I think Ant has the ability to be the best player in the league. In a couple of years, he's got pretty much every shot in the bag. He can finish at the rim with the best of them. Really, no one can stay in front of him when he's coming off the dribble. He's got the jump shot from three. He can create. He's actually I think what's gonna really help him to get to that next level is being able to find guys. Off the dribble. He's done a little bit better of a job this year. I think there was that game. It was a couple games ago. He drove the lane. He was looking to, hit the game winner, but then he jumped, found Conley in the corner for a wide open three, sealed the game. I think if he can continue to do that at a consistent level, that's really going to take his offensive game to unguardable. And then on top of that, the defensive end, we saw it in that Boston game with Jason Tatum. Like if he's locked in, man, he can lock up with the best of them. It's really just I think his off-ball defense that needs a little bit of work, and that just really comes down to discipline and locking in. So I think if he can really just like build off those things, I think in a couple of years, there's no reason why he couldn't be one of the best players in the league, if not like the most valuable.
Absolutely. I mean, when you have, he's just the type of guy that, like, he is a freak athlete amongst all of the
Hmm.
freak athletes, right? Like, he is truly like a 0.001% athlete. Like, he's
Yeah,
making dudes that are, incredible athletes within their own right look like scrubs just because of how quickly he can get to his spots and reach that
he's
peak
different.
elevation. Absolutely, man. And I feel like, for me, just somebody that everybody loves him, right? We all love Tussle. We all love the story. We all love everything he
Yeah,
says
dude.
off the court. So
He's the
he's
coolest guy in the
intoxicating,
world.
bro. Yeah, dude. It's like there's literally nothing not to like, and so I don't want to be slobbing on this guy too much, but like
I know,
I
I
feel
hear
like
you.
I feel like it's the kind of a unanimous opinion to say that, but like, looking at him last season, just in my opinion, what I wanted to see heading into last season was the defense, right? It's like, all right, you have,
Hmm.
and not to say he didn't show it before, but just that, like you said, it's just locking in, right? It's having the discipline. It's
Yeah.
having, taking on that challenge of guarding some of the team's best perimeter defenders. Like, he's already kind of checked that box, in my opinion, especially because he
Hmm.
has the luxury of playing alongside a guy in Jaden McDaniels. Like, McDaniels should and will have that top assignment when they're both healthy, right? Like, he's
Every
now.
single time.
Exactly, and it's great. But like, and not to say that Ant isn't going to be guarding good guys. Like he's playing the C's, he's guarding Jalen Brown,
Yeah, of
right? He
course.
plays the Cavs, he guards Donovan Mitchell. Like there's still the league is so good right now. Like he's still guarding
It's
elite
insane.
all-star level players, even when he's
Yeah.
not guarding the number one per se. But for me, I think it's just, and I'm obviously picking nits here, but when you have a guy that's that athletic, it's the shot selection, right? It's like you can
Yeah.
literally get any spot. You can get the step back
Hmm.
three. You can get the mid range jumper. But like, how disciplined
You
are you
can.
to go to the cup, right? Like, I feel like
Yep.
that, and like you said, it's just kind of locking in on those possessions, and then the final level is the consistency, right? I feel like I'm
Yep.
saying this because I've seen it with Jason Tatum over the past couple years, but like,
For
there's a
sure.
lot of guys in the league that can score 40 any given night, and he was like that as a rookie. For him, it's like, all right, how do
Yeah.
we get to those 26, 27, 28 points a game night in, night out? Are those kind of the
Yeah.
steps and the boxes that you want him to check as well?
It is, yeah, and I think with that, like with him being able to, like I said earlier, like find other teammates within the flow of the game when they're open and he gets doubled, like that's just gonna make that much easier for him. And like you said, he does have the ability to get anywhere on the court that he wants, you know. So like he's got the turnaround, he's out of nowhere kind of this season got the shot off the glass from like mid range, like even like damn near on the line, like it's kind of wild, but yeah, and he's just sick. So I don't know, man. I'm super high on Ant. Obviously, I think he's definitely the 1A on our team. Like Cat can be the 1B, but he's kind of deferring a little bit more than I think he should. But I think those two together, along with Rudy, we got Jaden locked up for a really long time. Nas for another 3 years. Mike Conley's been great. Nikhil's locked up for I think 2 more years after this. Like we've got the core kind of here, and now it's just kind of plugging and playing.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And that I love the mid range jumper, man. That's in my pickup game. I stand by it.
Yeah,
The
oh
mid
yeah, I
range is
know.
not that.
I'm aware.
Abs- Had to remind you of that, but yeah, bro, it's like those
Oh
playoff
yeah.
those playoff moments, bro. It's like just having somebody to get to create a shot and being a true 3 level scorer that's so valuable. But I know that
It is.
you're obviously the biggest Minnesota fan I know across all sports here, so I have to ask you, like, in all honesty, how many players do you think you would take over Anthony Edwards to start your franchise? Trying to remove all bias, I know it's
Yeah.
difficult, but I
Yeah.
am genuinely
Yeah.
curious as to where you would put him on that list because I do think it's a pretty
So
short list.
it is a short list for me. I think I went based off of like you picked them today at this point in their career. I think I actually wrote them down. And I think first is obviously Nikola Jokic. That dude's just a unicorn. Two-time MVP. I mean, he's kind of on pace to win it again this year. He's insane. I got to go Luka Doncic still. Although the defense is in there, Luka's just a walking triple double, and the Mavs are looking pretty solid. Even though I don't love their roster construction, Luka just continues to put in and put out. I'm still going Giannis over Ant at the moment. He's a freak. That's what the Greek freak, right? He just consistently wins. Guys want to play with him. He's also kind of like Ant in the terms of his charisma. Like people love that guy. Fan bases love him. He doesn't really have any enemies, kind of like Ant doesn't at this moment, in my opinion. And then I had a couple maybes here. I'd maybe pick D Book at this point. He's stone cold killer, right? I don't know if I would go D-Book. I think I like Ant's ability I think I just like Ant's athleticism and his ability on defense. I think he's just got a higher ceiling than D-Book on the defensive side. And his athleticism, I think, will just carry him through more than D-Book's will. And then the other maybe is actually a guy we played tonight in SGA. He's in the same draft class as Luka Doncic. I remember, this sounds kind of wild, but back in college or maybe it was a year after college, that draft went down, and I was telling like a lot of my buddies back home that I thought SGA was going to end up being the best pro out of that draft. And then last year it was kind of like, okay, is this actually happening? And then this year it's like, okay, there's like a legitimate argument between SGA and Luka. So I had those five right now. I might be forgetting a few. Like I could maybe say Jason Tatum. I know that's your boy, so you'd probably say Jason Tatum right now. But I just think Ant has the ability to be just he's different. I think it's just like his charismatic like energy that I think will potentially get him to be like one of the faces of the league, which is just insane. So
Absolutely, man.
that's kind of my list.
And I think that obviously, look, we're talking about basketball here. We're talking about guys that you would want on your team, but you would be remiss once you're all picking nits when you get to that level, right? So the off the court
You
stuff
are.
does matter, and it's how
Mhm.
people feel about you, how your teammates feel about you, even how the media feels about you to an extent
Yeah,
matters. And it's so obvious that like what we love about Ant is that he's durable, right? He plays in games, right? There's none of that load
he
management
does.
bullshit with Ant, and he loves being out there.
Yep,
Like it's obvious he loves the game. He has that
he
competitive,
does.
whatever. Like nobody's ever questioning those things. So it's just like there's even with like guys like Luca who loves it and he's competitive and he's a dog, but it's like, hey,
Mm-hmm.
he's coming into the season out of shape a couple different times. It's like, all right, that's tough, and
100%.
it's like there's again, you're just picking nits when you get to that level. So I think that stuff
You
does
are.
matter. I don't think you're crazy. For me,
I'm
kind of taking, I
Yeah,
looked
I
at
was
it.
gonna say I want to hear a few of yours. I want to hear some of
Yeah, for
yours.
sure, bro. Well, we basically hit a lot of the same ones as you would expect. I kind of approached it from like starting the franchise more so than this moment in time. I think this moment in time, I think the only guy that you forgot to mention would be Joel Embiid. Depending on how you
Oh
feel
yeah,
about
that's
that,
that's a fair one.
yeah, just because of what he's able to do both ends, just, he's in the prime of his career, so it's a tough comparison, obviously, for Ant-Man. But if you are looking at it from the perspective of like, hey, this is, remove all the players from all the rosters, it's like OG, 2K fantasy draft style, who do you
Yeah,
want to start your
exactly.
team? You're including age, and that's really about it, right? I think Ant is on that short list. I think the only guys I'd have in front of him are Jokic, like you said, Luka, like you said, and then I think those are like really the only two like hands
Yeah,
down. Like I won't really hear the argument. Then I think Giannis is still in that conversation just because of how good he is at this moment in time. I know he's a little bit older, but he's been durable. And I think it comes down to, I'm going to be biased. I'm going to take my guy Tatum just because I feel like he
yeah,
is a couple years
yeah,
further in the development. There's a little bit
yeah.
more size there,
As you
but
should.
yeah, exactly. It's just one of those things where it's like, hey, I don't think Ant is falling off the rails any further, but I do see like the career arc of Ant and JT being very similar, right? Like each
Me
year they're
too.
going to add a lot to their game, and obviously Tatum's had a lot more playoff success because of the talent around him. I'm not trying to pretend that Ant should have been carrying his teams to finals or any bullshit like that. But I think we're aligned, man. I think it just kind of goes to show the point of this exercise is that he is on that short list, especially when you factor in the
It
age
is.
and kind of where he projects to be in a couple years. But awesome, bro.
100%.
This is awesome. Well, I want to keep this rolling here because again, the Wolves have been on fire, right? They're obviously sitting here at the top of the Western Conference, but like now this is kind of when expectations start to shift, right? You're probably got the way this works with as far as the NBA and what the media kind of expects of you is like
Mhm.
everything's relative to expectations, right? Like right
It's
now it's the
crazy.
honeymoon. Right now it's the honeymoon phase, right? Like you're
It
sitting here,
is,
you
yeah.
haven't stopped smiling the entire time we've been talking, as you should.
I know,
But
bro.
like
It's
in a
it's
couple weeks,
crazy.
yeah, it is crazy. And like in a
Shit
couple
can go
weeks, it's like
south.
exactly you drop one to the Hawks and you're like, damn it, like we're better than the Hawks. Like why are we losing to a team
Yeah.
like that? And then that shifts. So how my long-winded way of saying like how do we maintain this, right? Like how is this going to be sustainable? Is it perhaps are there moves to be made at the trade deadline? Are where are kind of the missing pieces? And even if it's internal, like who are the guys that need to take that extra step forward for the Timberwolves to stay a top three seed in the Western Conference?
Yeah, I think well, for us to stay a top three seed in the Western Conference, I really think it's going to be doing what we didn't do last year, and we've been able to do it for the most part this year, and it's just beating those bottom level teams. Last year, I think we lost 10 games. I think it was exactly 10 games to teams that were like bottom three within their conference, and that's just like insane. Like I think we lost 3 or 4 to the Spurs. I know we lost a few, I believe, to like the Hornets, and like, come on, like we can't be losing those games. This year, we've been doing a better job of that, and we've been showing up to play even when it's a lesser opponent, which has been it's been really really good to see. I think that's going to be a way we can stay atop the West. Because we do show up to play against the good teams. I don't think we've really gotten railed by anybody so far this year. Actually, who did we play the other night? We kind of got bodied. I don't
I
even
think it was
remember.
the Kings, right?
It was
Which
the
was
Kings. Yeah, it
yeah,
was.
and that was a tough
They're
one. I mean,
respectable. It
yeah,
was.
the Kings have been on fire, I should say, since
Yeah.
Fox has been back, and like they got
Hmm.
downhill, and even then, I think you
We
guys were
shot like
down.
shit.
Yeah, you were down 20 in the second quarter, and then it
Yeah.
still ended up being like relatively competitive down the stretch.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's it. The Kings are a tough team to play, especially in the regular season.
Yeah.
But
They're-
as you were
They are,
saying,
and they match up. They match up pretty well against us. So they're. I mean, if we met them in the playoffs, that'd be a hell of a series. I think on top of that, I do think that we do need to make a move come deadline time. I think we kind of saw it tonight with, we've seen it the last couple of games, with J-Mac, our third point guard, being out, and then kind of having Shake to start the year, Shake Milton as our backup point guard. He's just simply not it from what I've seen so far this year. He's had a lot of turnovers. His jumper is just like really pushy. Like it doesn't look super fluid. Like he's short a lot of the time. He's more of like a mid-range guy, and I think like for us to take that next step to really become a legitimate contender, we need to go after a true backup point guard. I had a few written down, and it's kind of funny because they're both from Minnesota and they're actually brothers. But I would love to see us go bring Tyus Jones back from the Wizards. They're a dumpster fire right now, so I feel like he'd be a guy we could poach. And then I don't know how the Spurs feel about Trey Jones. Like they have Sohan starting over him right now at the point guard position, even though like the numbers show that Trey's better on where Wemby's better on the floor with Trey. So like I don't know if he's gettable, but a guy like that would be, I think, fantastic. Like they're both low turnover guys, kind of like Mike Conley. They can both, get other people involved very easily and play defense at a pretty respectable rate, right? And then the other guy I was looking at that is on another kind of dog shit team, excuse my language, is
You're
Ish
good.
Smith. Ish Smith, he's like not necessarily the guy that's going to be a floor general, but like he's kind of like Shake Milton, but an elevated Shake Milton. Like he can get you a bucket if you need to, and he's not a high risk player, right? You can kind of rely on Ish Smith. He's on what his 14th team in like 15 seasons. So it's like
Probably,
some
bro.
crazy shit.
He's the king of
Let's
the.
get out the Wolves.
I love that, bro. He's the king of the immaculate grid. I don't know if you ever play those or whatever. Like, if you're like,
yeah, I do,
dude, they're fire. And it's like, if there's ever two teams and you're like, oh, God, who played for like the Pistons and the Nuggets or like whatever? You're just plugging Ish Smith
Yeah.
and he's like probably an
Ish
answer.
Smith.
Like, it's a go.
Yeah,
But
for sure.
that's so funny. But no, what's crazy is
I think that's what we need to do, though. I think we just need to upgrade at point guard. I think we got the wings, we got the shooting. Maybe bring in a point guard that can shoot it a little bit better than Shake, and I think that rounds out our roster pretty well with Jaden coming back.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I think it's crazy. I literally had Tyus Jones. I didn't go as far as to say Trey as well written down because I think you're right. I mean, like you said, Shake, I just don't think he's a fit. I don't think he's a traditional point guard. He was horrible tonight as well. He had like three
Dude.
turnovers in like,
Dude.
like 2 minutes.
It's so ugly. I've been just like screaming inside my head because I live in a studio apartment, right? So I have no friends to scream with, and I'm just like, oh my god.
Yep, that's tough. And then of course J Mac can be smooth at times, but being a 5'10" backup point guard, it's just not sustainable, especially in the playoffs. Like
It's not.
you're just matchup hunting at that point. So I think we're aligned on
Yeah.
that. But obviously, like internally too, right? There's like a lot of guys that kind of maintain the level of play, and I'm just gonna come out and say that like. It sounds obvious, but like to me, Cat is the X factor, right? I know you're as much of a pro Cat guy as there gets. You're always defending that guy on Twitter and whatnot. But like,
Yeah.
I'm someone that I gotta be honest, I kind of lean the other way. He has shown me a lot. Like I never questioned the offensive talent of Cat. Like even this year, like he hasn't overly impressed me. He hasn't been super disappointing either. But like
No.
you look at the stats, I'm like he's putting up 50, 40, 90. And it's like you don't even really feel like that watching the games.
You don't. It is weird, and I totally agree with you that Cat's the X factor. I think it's him. I was gonna say Jaden a little bit, but I think you're totally right. Like this team's ceiling goes pretty much at this point as far as Cat goes, right? And so like as if Cat and Ant can because I think Cat's averaging like 22 and 9 on the year, like you said, 50, 40, 90. So why in the hell is he shooting the ball 8 times tonight? Like in a game where Ant goes down in the second half? Like that's just frustrating to me, and I know other Wolves fans are frustrated with it too. But at this point, dude, it's like, listen, you're in year, what is it, like year 9, right?
Yeah.
He's in year 9. Like, dude, come on,
Basically.
you've averaged like 25 a game at one point in your career, and you're supposedly in the prime of your career. We need more
Yeah.
if we want to compete. I agree.
It's frustrating because it's all mental with him, right? Like again, there's no holes in the offensive game. He does make the right play. It's only like when he'll randomly be like have 4 fouls and then be like, all right, this is the time where I'm going to put my shoulder into somebody and go to the basket. And it's like, what are you doing? It's like you average 4 fouls a game for a reason. It's like it's just like these head scratching plays that like you think he's going to grow out of and he doesn't. So that's like the main concern. Then the second concern is just like the competitiveness, the aggressiveness. Like obviously it looked like Finchy was trying to scheme him up some extra looks once Ant went down, as he should, right? Like you have a team with no size, you have a matchup advantage, you have the best player on the court, maybe besides SGA, but it's like, even then, he just didn't get it going. Now, obviously, it's a good team win. Troy Brown Jr. had the hot hand, whatever, but like, that stuff does it's still nuts, but still like not having him to be like, I gotta get some looks, like I gotta find a way to punish Chet here, like, or I gotta find a way to and even early in the game when Chet's guarding Gobert and then he's getting matched up against like Jalen Williams or whatever, it's just
Williams, dude. It's frustrating. I mean, I do get it because a lot of times what will happen with Cat is he'll get that post up, but it's like kind of out by the 3-point line, and so it enables teams to bring the double a lot more often. So I kind of get it. Like he's not trying to fight through double teams, but there's also times where it's just like, dude, can you just like catch the ball at the block and hit your baby hook that you shoot at like a 70% clip? Like, can you just do that like a couple times a game to get yourself going? And then the shots, you see a few go through the rim, and then that just opens things up like to a tremendous difference. Oh, it's like it is very frustrating, and he knows he has the ability. We know he has the ability. It just comes down to him fucking executing at this point.
Yeah, couldn't agree more, man. I like this team definitely has the talent, and just kind of again zooming out and trying to figure out what their destiny is for this season. Like, in the West, it's loaded. It's beyond loaded. So
It's
it's gonna be
crazy.
a war of attrition at the end of the day, right? Like God forbid somebody gets hurt and their star player misses, 15, 20 games. Like that's gonna be the difference between a 2 seed and a 6 seed. Like that's probably how it's gonna
Yeah,
be. Like I can't sit here and pretend like the Wolves are levitating above the rest of the pack just because of where they are in the
not at
standings.
all.
But
It's a
because of
battle.
their because of their age, like they have a good of chance as any. Like if anything, they have a better chance than a team like Golden State that's already had some injuries and then some struggles with their roster construction and guys getting
Yeah,
older and
they're
whatever.
kind of a nightmare right now, actually.
Yeah, they are, and I was pretty high, but I'm always going to be bullish on Golden State, man. I love Steph, so I'm just going
Same
to
here.
continue to pick them to be a contender until he's out of the league, probably. But
Yeah,
with that, they're in a tough spot. Phoenix, as injury bug, has reared its head with literally everybody besides KD, and the load they're putting on him is unsustainable. Like you can just go
it's
down the list.
unsustainable for sure.
Yeah, and you just go down the list and it just goes on and on. So the Wolves are in that position where like, hey, they can be the young healthy team right there with the Mavericks and right there with
Yep.
the Kings and whatever and you look up and they're still atop the Western standings. So, who knows where they end up, but what do you think ultimately the destiny of this team is, right? Whether they get that point guard at the deadline or not. Give me your 100% honest and where you stand at this point in time at the end of November, where you think the Wolves will end up this season.
I think top 3 seed is pretty realistic for us. I think with our roster construction and getting Jaden back, like barring health, I think there's no reason we shouldn't be a top 3 seed in the West. When it comes to like where we're gonna finish in the playoffs, I don't know. That's kind of a different story. I mean, I think we're kind of a matchup nightmare across the board, but Rudy, like throughout his career, has traditionally gotten played out of the playoffs. So it'll be interesting how we adjust to that and see like if we have any different schemes or something that we can do that make him more effective in the playoffs. But I do like having Nas off the bench, as that backup big. And then I think, from a Wolves fan perspective, right, with all of our kind of misery and just kind of like mockery that we've kind of been through for my whole life. Like I've been noted saying this season to some friends out here in Los Angeles that like a first round series win would like I'd be ecstatic about that. We've got all these guys, pretty much our core pieces locked up for the next 4, 5, 6 years. So like a first round series win would be great. Like it's something we can build off of, but I also wouldn't be surprised if we fuck around and go all the way to the Western Conference Finals. Like last year we got a game off Denver without Jaden, without Nas, and without Kyle Anderson, I believe. Like we teams don't really want to play us. We just got a lot of talent, we got a lot of length, we got a lot of we've got not a lot, but we've got a good amount of shooting, and then if we can add that extra piece that I mentioned earlier in the pod, like I think we're a legitimate roster that can actually contend. So it'd be I mean obviously the finals are a pipe dream and everything. Like I'd love to see it, but I think with our lack of experience and kind of having a newer roster still, I think winning a series or two would be great.
I think I'm with you up to the first round series win, right? Which again,
Yeah.
I'm not saying that in any sort of condescending way, especially in this Western Conference, man. Like that's a big deal. Like you're looking at the team, it's like, all right, like you could easily match up with Golden State in round one, and like even like a team like the Clippers, like if they figure it out, it's like, all right, they still have a lot of talent and a lot of guys that have been in wars and won championships. It's like it's going to be a test and a humongous accomplishment for a team whose best player is 21 or whatever to win a first round series in this Western Conference. And so,
and, I mean, shit, on top of that too, dude, you got to, with it being a playoff series, like it comes down to X's and O's, man. So it's like, what coach can make the right adjustments, and, bring on new looks. I mean, Finch typically likes to just let the guys play freely. He doesn't have a lot of structure to his offense. So I don't know. Like it might be kind of a wake up call with this roster if we run into a team that we just cannot get a good look on. Like, is there going to be more structure? Are we going to run more plays for Cat? Are we just going to let Ant go out and do his thing? Like, who knows, man? So it's kind of up in the air. I just want to see us win a series, man. See what that looks like. Just get the juice back in Minnesota, man. Get those fans up there. A second round fucking playoff series. Like that's a basketball state right now, and they've been kind of like, or we, I should say, since I'm newly out of Minnesota, man. We've been praying for some playoff basketball to go beyond the first round. So.
Yeah, and when, not to be a jerk, but like when was the last one? Was it 04 since you got any sort of playoff series win, right? It was probably 04, right? The last guy that I just wanted to sneak in a couple takes on Mike Conley. To take D'Angelo Russell and like he was just such a terrible fit alongside the development of Ant and everything that you guys were trying to do. Like you needed that veteran calming presence out there, knows where to be on the court. Much more difficult to attack because he obviously, when he was in his prime, was one of the best guard defenders in the entire NBA.
Yeah,
Obviously, he's not
good.
that anymore, but he's still not a weak link by any means. So he's kind of actually the person that, obviously Cat is that primary X factor, but if Conley stays healthy and doesn't show signs of slowing down and old age kind of creeping in, it's going to be a lot to ask for him night in, night out. So if you can get that backup guard sooner rather than later, just to lighten his load and keep him fresh for playoffs.
Yeah, dude, I totally agree, man. Mike Conley, flipping D'Lo for Conley and Nickeil Alexander-Walker, like that's like taking candy from a baby out from Tim Connolly. Like that's an insane trade. We got such good value, like two of our main rotational guys for D'Lo, who's like, you know what D'Lo is gonna give you, dude. Like inconsistent shooting for like 4 nights, and he'll have 2 good games, reel you back in, and then do it all over again. So yeah, I mean, and they're both great fits for the team. Last year, I was at the play-in game that we lost to the Lakers, and we went to like the Ritz-Carlton to grab a drink after the game right across from Staples or Crypto whatever arena, and I saw Mike walking out, so like I dapped him up. I was like, "What up, Mike?" I was like, "Yeah, I used to sell tickets for the Wolves, man. I wish we had you." And then I was like, I had to, instead sell Isaiah Canaan on a 10-day contract. And he started laughing his ass off, dude. So like, I mean, all respect to Isaiah Canaan, like solid NBA career. Didn't mean anything mean there, but like it was just like Mike has just been such a perfect point guard, and it's like kind of weird to think about. But I saw a tweet the other day that said like, at this point, is Mike Conley like already the best point guard the Timberwolves have had, like in terms of just like importance to their team and like and how important they are to win the games? And it's like, I think the answer is actually yes, dude. Like I can't think of another guy that I could rely on from the point guard position to, one, not turn the ball over, because we all knew D'Lo was gonna at least have four a night, and then 2, like just defend at a high level, and weirdly at 36 years old, and then also be able to knock down like even that corner 3 this year. I think he's at 54% from the corner 3. So that's just nuts. Insane. And now we call him Bite because of Ant. I think he called him that a couple games ago. He's just like, he looks like he's gonna bite everybody. So now like everyone calls him Bite.
That's great. Yeah, I feel like it is kind of sad to think about, but I do think you're probably right in saying that. I mean, you'd be the guy I'd ask. Like, you're obviously gonna, if you go back far enough, you probably find like, guys
Sam
that were
Cassell?
obviously more, yeah, Sam Cassell and dudes that were maybe more talented, right? You had Marbury for a period of time. Like, yeah. I think maybe Terrell Brandon's best years were with the Wolves at some point. Like, I don't know. Like, I don't know how. I obviously wasn't watching back then, but like, obviously,
isn't that crazy?
Dude, it's nuts. But like, if you're taking into need, like, yeah, you have this 21-year-old megastar, you have Cat, you have Gobert, like, and even just him being able to be like the guy advocating to get Gobert his touches, and for Gobert's mental health out there, and for the teams keeping everybody kosher. Great. Like, it's essential, bro. So I that's awesome. Thank you for sharing that story of talking to Mike. I'm sure he's clearly a beloved dude in like every stop he's been, even before getting to Minneapolis. So that's awesome, bro. But Garrett, I think that basically does it here, man. We're super excited to stay tuned and keep watching the Wolves. But anything else to tell the Words with Wallace listeners before we wrap up here?
I don't think so. I think all I gotta say is just keep tuning in. We're a fun team. We'll get Jaden back, and we'll be hounding dudes on the defensive end. So I think there's a lot of excitement. Looking forward the rest of the year. I think maybe we might have clinched the in-season tonight. I don't know if that happened yet or not, but we're looking like we have a good shot at making it. So exciting time to be a Wolves fan right now. I'm still going to be freaking out from my studio apartment in Los Angeles the rest of the year. Try to catch games, whenever I can when we're out here. So, Nick, thanks for having me on, bro. It's great to talk with you. Next time I see you, we got to run some more 2-on-2. Get that little that 2-guard game going and just try to cook some more people.
Yeah, we got to see whose money we can take, bro. We don't got Kofi and Otto hanging around anymore, bro.
Shout out Cole and Kofi, man. Shout them out.
We're going to have to send them this link for sure, bro. But Garrett, it's great catching up, man. Appreciate the time, and we'll have to bring you back at some point later on if the Wolves are popping and maybe they make a run in the in-season tournament. Maybe it's playoff time, but we'll probably get you back on the horn here to talk some more Wolves. Before I let you guys go, be sure to follow @Words with Wallace on everything: YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Spotify, Apple Music, wherever you get your podcast. Be sure to follow, share the show, tell a friend, and I will talk to you guys next week. Peace.